Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dear friends, welcome to the Bruno Kreisky Forum on this very special occasion and this very crowded, but I think, as we think, very important panel. Silenced but not defeated, Russian anti-war resistance. The war, the aggression of Russia against Ukraine we have now seen this war for more than 3 years. And war in general does not, of course, only take place at the front. It also affects whole societies, whole countries. It also, of course, affects the diaspora, and it certainly also affects those people that would prefer peace to war, to say this very generally. Therefore, I'm very happy to have Cathrin Kahlweit here, our moderator and curator, launching this discussion with 7, and there are for sure more, but 7 representatives of the diversity, also basically showing the diversity of Russians against war living here in Austria. Many or some of them for many more years, for many more than 3 years, of course, and for various reasons. I'm happy because to have this event today here and to see your great interest into such an event, because the Bruno Kreisky Forum understands itself as a platform for a variety of perspectives, even if we don't agree on everything, if we have our different perspectives, because we come from different backgrounds, countries, histories, we should still make ourselves aware of these differences and actually go into or try to pursue a culture of dialogue. It's a lot of talk about the dialogue of cultures, and maybe this is not so important than the culture of dialogue, the culture of communication, also that enriches us and gives us the opportunity to not only show empathy, but this is very important, but to really try to understand where people come from and why they think and do what they're doing. So this is the platform the Bruno Kreisky Forum would like to offer. There is, as you might have understood, and thank you very much for accepting our policies on security, there is, of course, in the world we live and in the situation we live, there is the necessity to be aware of security options. Therefore, you don't have the names here. Cathrin Kahlweit will, of course, present the organizations. And please, although we did not announce this in the invitation, we stick to a kind of Chatham House rule, meaning we do not give away too much information about the people here. And this is important. This ensures this is a basis of trust building and ensures also a good dialogue we have here. Also on logistics, Cathrin will not only on of course presenting the people, but also on logistics, Cathrin Kahlweit will give you a further detail. But let me just share one thing, because you will then we will have a bit of a very engaged discussion here in various places in this forum. And I had this idea that we have coffee and sirinki. And then I understood, and I was told that there was a kind of, this was an idea that people coming from having a Russian background would also basically bring something with them. And I became aware of the fact that this was not accepted, because it seems that even food has become associated, or the fear that food becomes associated with a certain policy. And if we are, even if we understand this, if we are in this situation, I think we all have to ask ourselves what has happened to the culture of dialogue. So with that, we offer you coffee and water and some other things, but not sirinki, maybe at a later stage. So thank you for coming. I wish you an interesting evening, and to all of you, I thank you very much for being here. Brave, and thank you for all your engagement, especially also in our societies, in our society here in Austria, because we all understand this is not easy. So now I hand over to Cathrin, and you enjoy or have a good and interesting evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming. Although everybody on this podium speaks Russian, obviously, we will have the evening in English. And before we start, we have 7 groups on this podium, 7 speakers of the podium. You can use their first names and you can take pictures of them. At the end of the room is the rest of the groups that have, the members of the groups that have come today. Do you want to just rise once? All of those, okay, maybe stand up, please. There's more and more and more. Some more guys, yes. You can talk to them later. Do not take their pictures, please, and do not take their names. So we agreed, these are the representatives. They are the co-fighters, and they will stay in the back and later on start the discussion with you. I am going to need a few minutes longer for my opening statement than I usually do, because usually I don't like to talk too much in the beginning, and not everybody might like everything I'm going to say now. This evening is an experiment for us. It will take a lot of goodwill, discipline, tolerance, and frankness, because it does not happen very often that Russian citizens who call themselves anti-war activists appear in public to explain their work in the West. We at Kreisky Forum discussed for quite a while actually, whether we should offer a podium to Russian activists. Russia has been fighting a war against the sovereign country of Ukraine since 2014. And in 2022, it started a full invasion with all the terror and brutality and horror and ignorance that one can imagine. It is very understandable that Ukrainians don't want to sit together with Russians on one podium. Ukrainian groups voiced their discomfort with this evening, and I do understand their reserve to some respect. There is a lot of mistrust against an opposition which might hate the war, but not all that it stands for, which is Russian imperialism and neo-colonialism. It is as well, especially for me as a long-time Ukraine correspondent, an emotional endeavor to moderate such a session. I have to admit that. And it is, last but not least, not always clear and difficult to check in advance how independent groups are and who they stand for and who stands behind them. Not every Russian, as we know, who left the country because of the war is against the war. So, having said all this, there's the big but, and that's why we're here. And I'm saying sorry for what I said, but I think it's necessary. There's a lot of activists and opposition politicians and artists and writers in exile who may be called a new dissident movement. Just 2 weeks ago, I had Vladimir Sorokin on the stage of Akademie Theater, who was a staunch critic of Putin. Other Russians I wanted to invite to Vienna do not travel to Vienna because of safety reasons. So things are complicated, and opposition to Putin does exist, which is proven by hundreds of Russians being sentenced to prison, thousands being fined absurd fines for the slightest sign of criticism against the so-called special operation. Not everything, as we know, is black and white. So we are open and curious to hear new critical and independent ideas and opinions, and we want to listen and learn. We want to be open to all voices which denounce the war against Ukraine as what it is, a breach of international law, an assault against democracy and sovereignty, and an assault against the Russian society as well. We will hear 7 presentations tonight. There will be strict Chatham House rules. What is said by members of the panel and members of the group may not be quoted by name. This means you can quote wherever you go. The feminist anti-war resistance condemns the Russian invasion in Ukraine. You cannot, please, do not say Sasha, I don't know what, Gulyaeva from the feminist anti-war resistance condemns the Russian invasion. Okay, agreed? Photos, as I said, of panelists, okay, not from the rest of the teams. We will hear short explanations of who those groups are, what they dedicate their work to, and where they come from. And then, this is part of the experiment, we will do something that we call Schnitzeljagd. So we'll have a speed dating. After each group presented itself, I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions. We will all get up. The 7 groups will sit down in 7 places, and you can follow them, join a group, learn about what they have to say, listen, ask questions, and after about 10, at the most 15 minutes, because we don't have that much time, the speakers switch positions. You can stay seated. If you want to hear more, eventually you can walk with one of them or the others. So you know, you choose a place, the speakers are changing around, and you will hear about their work, okay? Just 5 more words, then I'm handing over. the 7 organizations that we're going to listen to today is Denkfabrik, a project on Russian affairs, producing figures, analysis, and information. Artyom Korchnev, who's sitting over there, who initiated this evening, is publicly visible in Vienna as a researcher at the Vienna Institute for International Economic Studies. So he's kind of like a public figure. Then we have the Feminist Anti-War Resistance, which was, if I'm not mistaken, founded in 2022, exactly, to protest the war, obviously the full invasion. In its first months, it became one of Russia's fastest growing anti-war campaigns, but Sasha's going to say all of that. And in 2024, it was labeled an undesirable organization. Yes. And I assume you're now all enemies of the people. Of course. Gamayun is a Russian bookstore which promotes books of independent Russian authors, and so much more. They're going to talk about that too. Then we have Memorial. You have all heard about Memorial in Russia, that supports, that was founded in 1989, dissolved by the government in 22, trying to discover, research, and remember the systematic terror of the Gulag and standing for human rights. Russians Against War, self-explaining, founded in 2022, and Vienna Voice, an initiative for anti-war resistance, human rights, an advocacy for Russian-speaking folks. Did I miss anybody? No, good. These are all local Viennese groups. Part of them are part of bigger groups. No, the Navalny group. I forgot Navalny. Sorry, see, I did miss someone. So Navalny group, self-explaining too. So I do insist, last words from my side for now. I do insist that we discuss in a civilized way. Anybody who takes an aggressive stance or defends the Russian war against Ukraine, at least when it comes to me, is not especially welcome. There are other places to voice pro-Putin sentiments than this night, which is a night for the victims in and of the war against Ukraine. Thank you. So, Sasha, the floor is yours.
Yes. Do I need to use the microphone or?
Yes, please. Where's one? We're all kind of practicing this. Okay, so forgive us if we're not perfectly organized.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. And as I said, today I'm speaking on behalf of Feminist Anti-War Resistance. We are the grassroots feminist movement. We started on February 25th, 2022, the day after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And we started as a feminist street protest group in Russia, organizing street protests across the country. But as soon as open protest became illegal, many of us were forced into exile. Still, however, many of our comrades continue working in Russia underground, anonymously and at a very great personal risk. Today, Feminist Anti-War Resistance has become a decentralized international network with over 20 active groups working in exile and many more working as partisans in Russia. These local cells operate as affinity groups spread across the country. Similar to the German fascist regime of 1930s, today in Russia, protest is faced with brutal repression. So our activists in Russia engage in partisan resistance. For example, they distribute anti-war underground newspapers that are disguised as Russian official newspapers. They help Ukrainian refugees escape Russia and support political prisoners. They help young men avoid military conscription, and they also raise awareness about gender-based violence and how it's connected to authoritarian patriarchal regime of Putin's Russia. In exile, we're trying to take up tasks that are impossible for our fellow colleagues to do back in Russia. We organize protests and street actions. We do fundraising for Ukrainian humanitarian aid. We advocate for women's and LGBTQI+ rights, and we expose links between Putin's regime and far-right movement across Europe. We have been pronounced foreign agents and an undesirable organization by Russian state for all our actions. That means that now it is illegal to share our materials and everything in Russia, and several of our activists in exile have been fined by the Ministry of Justice for refusing to comply with its demands. But we are proud that none of our activists have been imprisoned so far. And this is the result of not just luck, but strong security protocols that we are constantly updating and reinforcing. We call ourselves Feminist Anti-War Resistance because we believe that Putin's war machine and patriarchy go hand in hand. It's the same violence that fuels gender-based violence crisis in Russia that also enables imperial aggression abroad. And this is why not only do we stand against the war, but also we stand against the system behind the war. Here in Vienna, we organize street actions, we speak at protests, and we try to collaborate with local groups. We highlight the connection between Putin's regime and Austrian far-right parties. We also raise awareness about how Russian fossil fuel money support not only the war, but also political corruption. We've been disturbed by the lack of awareness in Austrian civil society about the profound Kremlin influence on local institutions, but we aim to change that. As I said, our work here falls under 3 directions. It's protest actions, collaboration with local initiatives, and awareness and advocacy. To sum it up, we are calling for direct collaboration with Austrian organizations. We want to share our knowledge about resisting authoritarianism, understanding Kremlin's influence, and connecting the dots between Putin's regime and global far-right. Standing up to the far-right here in Austria is a part of fight against Putin. These forces reinforce each other, and we must resist them together. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Excellent. That short is perfect. I'm going to ask you 2 short questions. I'm not going to bore you for a long time. You said you're collecting for Ukrainians as well, for Ukrainian groups to support.
Yes.
How is the connection between Ukrainians? Do you talk? Do you meet? Is there something like underground?
Well, on the part of our local group here in Vienna, we are working to establish connections with local Ukrainian groups, but as a bigger network, Feminist Anti-War Resistance has been in contact with Ukrainian organizations that are fundraising money for generators for hospitals. And this is how we work on a bigger level. Yeah.
And the second question, I think it's very relevant that you say that the far right in Austria and its rising influence is part of the big game. Let me put it like that. Game is a bad word, though. Have Austrian parties, except for the FPÖ, I assume, ever approached you? Has the Austrian government ever approached you? Did they want to know anything about what you know?
I don't think so. I think this is the first time we have been publicly speaking about this at a forum where people are specifically invited to hear about this. We've been protesting, we've been going to protest as our group, but none of the members of any party. No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so number 2 is Alexandra. Pardon? Yeah. Speaking for. I was told. Well, okay. Yeah. Whoever. I'm not going to say anything more. Introduce yourself. I'll just hand over.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Asya, and I am here to represent Navalny Memorial Group here in Vienna. And first, I wanted to say a couple of words of who Alexei Navalny was. He was a Russian opposition politician who was trying to undermine the corrupted system, who was unearthing the corruption in the highest level of Russian politics, and he tried to do it all the possible legal ways. This ended up in him being detained in 2021, where he was held in prison under tortured conditions. And in 2024, in February, he died. And that was also the day of when we sort of started to exist. All over Europe and also in Russia, which is pretty unprecedented under current pressure of the regime, a lot of people have gathered to memorize him, to grieve his death. One of the places where the spontaneous demonstration arose was in front of the Russian embassy here in Vienna, and the spontaneous memorial appeared at the very same day. The memorial grew bigger, people came to bring flowers, people came to bring their thoughts, to bring their signs, to share their feelings and hopes, and it started to be more and more permanent until before the day of the election in Russia, the whole memorial was completely destroyed in one night. That was the day when we became more organized because we decided to restore it in time for the election so the people who came to vote for the Russian embassy could see it. Since then, there was going on an ongoing battle with the embassy employees, so to say. They were destroying the memorial, we were putting it back, and so on and so forth. At some point, they grew tired and stopped destroying it so actively, so we could say that we won. Also, gradually, we understood that the topic of the memorial and the place of open speech that the memorial gave us became bigger than just the figure of Alexei Navalny, and that we wanted to memorialize other victims of Putin's regime, people who were killed in jail, who were detained, who are now in prison, that we wanted to speak about this war being criminal war and the need for peace, and that attracted even more people. So that is our main goal, and that is our main message. We were doing this with the gracious help of the German embassy, who was building up at this time, and the construction site of the German embassy was our display, so to say. But eventually the construction stopped, and we had to find a new place for the memorial, and Bruno-Kreisky Forum has graciously accepted us. You can see the memorial as it is conserved now outside there when we have the speed dating session.
May I interrupt for just a second? No. Do that just right after we walk to our stations, because later it will be dark and you want to see it. So you can look into the garden. It's standing right in front of the big window. So,
thank you. So what do we want? We want to show to people in Vienna that the Putin regime is a criminal regime, and that we should all be very much aware of what it is, to understand the seriousness of the danger that poses to us. And we think that showing people who were killed by the regime and the crimes of the regime, on the one hand, we can raise awareness. On the other hand, it gives us and other people, also from Russia, a place to speak up. You can see some of the messages from people inside Russia who are unable to go outside in the streets, also displayed on the memorial. And finally, what we want to have is, we would very much want to have some permanent memorials place, be it a tree or a memorial stone, or maybe even our fence with the posters placed somewhere. And we would be very happy if we could have some support and advice in how to achieve that.
Thank you very much. So we're collecting wishes and desires. One wish is that the Austrian government or parties are interested in the knowledge of the anti-feminist war group, and we collect the desire, maybe the city of Vienna can do something about that and offer a square, a place or whatever, where this memorial could be put on. You mentioned you talked about Navalny, you talked about what your goals are. Are you in contact with the foundation? With the Navalny Foundation, or is that just a loose connection?
That is a relatively loose connection, but we are being more or less in touch with all the groups, but not officially, so to say, not intensely.
And then the other question, we're probably going to ask it anyways, sooner or later. Navalny, Ukrainians have a big problem with him because of racist sentiments that he voiced 20 years ago. Is that something that is a topic for you, or is he mainly for you a symbol of repression in Russia at the moment?
It is a topic for us in terms that we do acknowledge that and we do remember that, but also it is important to understand that people do change in time, and his later, most recent speeches and public speeches were of a completely different notion.
Okay.
And he did do some radical stuff in his youth that even, for example, I am not agreeing with, but I do understand that he has changed a lot of his thoughts. And the even more important part of that is, regardless of how good or bad he was, that doesn't give the state the right to murder him and torture him in prison.
Само собой разумеется. Пожалуйста.
Good evening. My name is Sasha Skorich, and here I represent Gamayun together with my colleague Lunia, who is standing over there. We are a bookstore founded in December 2021, and this bookstore serves as a vital hub for Russian-speaking migrants and political refugees. Initially conceived as a haven for book lovers, it rapidly evolved into a grassroots community center operating mostly from queer feminist positions and fostering engagement in politics, art, and activism. The space is designed to facilitate open dialogue, mutual support, and the incubation of independent projects and initiatives. We as Gamayun founders prioritize creating an environment where individuals can freely exchange ideas, collaborate on projects, and build supportive networks among themselves. Our operational model emphasizes horizontal structures and participatory decision-making. This commitment to grassroots organization ensures that all projects and initiatives reflect the community's needs and desires. Crucially, Gamma Yun operates entirely independently of any city, state, or institutional funding. This financial autonomy safeguards the space from any external influence as far as it possible, and also allows for a higher degree of anonymity for participants who require it, fostering a safer and more inclusive environment. The emphasis is on creating a space of true self-determination and empowerment for the community it serves. Gamma Yun is more than just a space for like-minded individuals. It's a place where people can also develop their anti-war stance. Through interaction with active participants, those uncertain about their position or previously unconcerned with the war can witness the passion, artistic expression, and activism surrounding anti-war sentiment. This exposure fosters great involvement. For those hesitant to publicly express their views, especially Russian passport holders traveling to Russia, Gamma Yun offers a community of shared values. Even if unable to participate in street protests due to lack of resources, mental state, or any other constraints, they can connect with like-minded people and maintain a sense of community. Our community includes also Russian-speaking Ukrainians who find in Gamma Yun a safer space for political and artistic engagement, or simply a place to socialize in their native language, avoiding potential encounters with pro-war individuals. As an integral part of the Hernals district, Gamma Yun's visible anti-war feminist message on its window actively contributes to the neighborhood's discourse, reaching visitors and passersby, and anyone who reads English.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is Gamma Yun? It's some mystic bird?
It's a bird.
It's a bird.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. You said it started out with, is this also a safe haven for the LGBTQ community? Because you mentioned that, but
Right.
that's just part of it, because obviously we know that this is a big problem in Russia.
Exactly.
Okay. And you started out as a bookstore in the beginning. Do you publish like independent Russian literature or international literature or literature from Russians who are in exile? Or what, do you have a focus?
We do not publish anything, we just sell books from independent publishers, and partly our books are coming from Russia and partly from the publishing houses that were relocated to European states.
Okay, because there's lots of books which are not printed anymore, not sold anymore.
Because most of the books that we are selling are now not possible to sell in Russian bookstores.
Okay. Alexander, Russians against war, right?
No.
No.
2-1, 2-1,
I give up. I'm sorry. I lost it.
Close. I mean, we are against war, yeah. We're all Russians against war. So, yeah.
Vienna Voice. Okay.
Yeah. I'm here to represent Vienna Voice. I think it's the youngest initiative among the initiatives here, formed in the spring of 2024. So yeah, it's Vienna-based, and this community unites and represents those, mainly Russian speakers, who oppose Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as well as the authoritarian oppressive regime in Russia. What we do, we act as a support group, as a network, as a call for action. We mobilize our participants to participate in protests, demonstrations, cultural events, and other initiatives. We organize initiatives of political nature, from writing letters to political prisoners in Russia, to demonstrations of small scale. We're a fairly small scale community, around 60 people so far, and also collaborate with many of the initiatives present here on stage on a variety of events. Everything from demonstrations to political literature book clubs, etc., etc., etc. And we stand as a community against the war. Of course, we stand against the discrimination and persecution of minorities, human rights, and silencing of dissent in Russia and in other contexts.
I want to ask you something, because I'm amazed. I've only met Artyom before. All of you speak perfect English. You sound like you've been like, I don't know, like you grew up in London, all of you. So how long have most of you been here? I mean, haven't come in 22, obviously, but I know Artyom has been here for like 12 years, right? Yeah. And the rest of you, I mean, you came in 22? And did you already speak English? Okay. And the others?
I came in 23.
Okay, I'm impressed. We're all impressed, I think. So, great. We've got to learn something from that.
I
So,
learned German. I already knew English. It
Okay.
was a new challenge.
Okay. And another, I have a stupid question. I probably shouldn't ask that. Maybe lots of you ask that yourself. You said you offer like activities for Ukrainians and Russians, and everybody who wants to voice a stance against the war. I hear extremely much Russian on the street. I can't differentiate between Russian and Ukrainian. Is that are that Russian-speaking Ukrainians mostly, or are there many Russian? I don't know what. There's no tourists anymore, but is it refugees that we're here in the city? Stupid question, but I would like to know.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure my colleagues also have something to say. So the Russian you hear from the city can come from a variety of directions, because so many people in the post-Soviet space speak Russian. Yeah, I'm myself Armenian, ethnically Armenian, but grew up in the Russian Federation. Many of my Armenian friends speak Russian with me. So it's quite unpredictable. There are a lot of Russians here for sure, have been also before the war. Of course, after the war, the amount increased. There's a lot of Russian-speaking Ukrainians from a variety of
The reason
regions.
why I'm asking that is especially, I mean, have you met Russians that find their way into resistance, into opposition, into voicing a criticism, being here, seeing you can't do that here? I mean, have you run into people who say, "Oh, thank you"?
Thank you for the initiatives that we are organizing and stuff. Well, I can say myself that the way I've learned about some of the communities here and the way I got involved is on the day of the burial of Alexei Navalny. I was also there, you mentioned, in front of the embassy during this spontaneous action. And there I learned about some of the initiatives taking place. And this was something that I was incredibly grateful for at that time of life. At that particular day, I think, that many of us felt especially hopeless. And just for my sanity, I had to do something, something to support, of course, the effort against the war, and something to also support political prisoners in the Russian Federation.
Thank you. Artyom, Denkfabrik.
Thanks. So just as you said, my name is Artem. I'm a conflict researcher. Have been doing this over the last 9 years. That's pretty much my whole professional career up to this point. And I remember when I came to Austria, that was a very specific day because I came in 2014, and literally the next day, Putin started the invasion of Crimea. That was like 22nd of February or 21st, the accounts differ. But that was, like back at the day, I was actually consciously distancing myself from this whole events. For one of the reasons was because it was to me like very bizarre. I just couldn't understand how that was actually possible in the modern age, just to go with the military forces over the border of your closest neighbor, who you claim to be your brothers and all, and also how much blood the person is ready to spill over, just for the effectively some part of political ambition the person wants to achieve. And then it just eventually turned out that I dedicated my whole research career to that, partly out of the reason to understand what was actually happening, first in Crimea, but actually more in Donbas. Now, what was concerning to me back at that time was the fact that it was treated as a sideline issue in Europe, it felt to be. Like, that's some kind of muddy story there is so much unclear, and it looks like as if Minsk II has solved all of the problems, or at least frozen them. And so when you actually try to investigate what was happening there, you couldn't find a lot, which was on the one hand terrible, on the other hand that gave me a space as a researcher to do some valuable work. Now until 2022, it was not the part of work which would enjoy a lot of interest, because it would look like a sideline issue on the outskirts of Europe, which could be resolved in one way or another in the way it is. Now it turned out it was not the case. And one of the reasons why it was a wrong assessment is partly because I think, at least that's my feeling, in Europe, for a very long time, at least since the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, there was this perception that now the life is different, we can all be friends, and it's just a matter of trading and establishing economic relationship which can solve all of the problems. We don't have ideological divisions anymore, we have just misunderstandings at the best. And for me, and probably any person who grew up in Russia, even in my time, I was born in '92, that was very strange, because even when I was probably 16 years old, already understood what is the flight time of a rocket, of a missile, which could launch from, I don't know, the base of NATO in Romania. That's the level of conversation that we used to have in Russia from this state TV, right? And this paradigm was just, this frame of thinking was totally absent in Europe. It was all about peace, communication, trade, things along those lines. And I think that it is only now that Europe started to realize how important is strategic thinking. The word geopolitics, which used to be like a nonsense word, which nobody would seriously discuss about even 3 or 4 years ago, is now became the mainstream thing. Everybody's talking about this, and it kind of bothers me a lot, because just with when the US withdrew its troops from Afghanistan, everybody suddenly became an expert on Afghanistan issues. Same happened with Ukraine and all other, you know the drill, right? And so I saw part of my responsibility in a way is to try to establish an initiative which can actually foster a more meaningful understanding of what people think in Russia, how they act, and not based just on reinterpreting some news, which you could see all around the place, right? But actually bringing the evidence, be it the data or be it the people who come from various backgrounds in Russia, understand how Russia works. And I think one of the main messages of my initiative, which is both the educational initiative and also a place to exchange valuable insights, is that Russia, even though it has a lot of specific features, let's call it this way, imperialism, neocolonialism, all those things, they are not unique. They are part of the many societies in the world that we see, and I think the Trump example shows this example pretty well, how you can try to twist one of the oldest, probably the oldest democracy in the world into some kind of a beast which uses power for its own benefit. And these issues which are not unique. We see now the people who are in the Republican parties, raising hands in salutes and all those things. It's happening in Russia, it's happening in the United States. Probably we can learn from one another. And that's why I'm doing this. I think that we can learn from one another, and I'm looking for collaboration, both scientific ones and maybe more applied ones, like policy research. I think it is important, and I think it will help us to understand better how to approach Russia when Putin eventually dies. And then, what is the contingency plan for Europe in case that happens? Who are you going to talk with? What are the possibilities? What is the strategic approach to that? I'm pretty sure there is no such thing at this point, and we're 3 years in war, and I think we should really start thinking heavily about this, and I would love to exchange it with you during the speed dating sessions. Thank you very much.
There is a mystery that you did not disclose. Where would we find your work? If I wanted to learn what you write, do you publish it somewhere? Is there a website?
There is a website, there is a social media presence, there is a YouTube channel. You can write me an email as well. That will work. Yeah.
Okay, so if I wanted to contact, what do I type into the website if I wanted to read John Porchnev, or is it Denkfabrik, or?
It's called denkfabrik.online. This is the website which you can find, and there you will find all of the credentials.
Do you have a common something denominator when it comes to websites? Is there a common appearance somewhere in the internet, or do I have to find each of you individually by doing a lot of research?
I think you have to invest a little bit of time for this. I think the platform which is shared mostly by all of us is Instagram, simply because it allows for more engaging content because of the visuals.
So my wish for this evening is maybe some kind of a centered, what I mean?
Umbrella?
Yeah, an umbrella where, all of us who maybe want to support or donate or find out more would, find where to look and what to look for. Lydia and Voices Against War, anti-war.
Hi, is it working? Yes. Hello everyone, thank you for coming today. Before I start, I want just to say thank you to you and to my colleagues, and I thought that maybe it's important for you to know that we are not existing separately from each other, just like communities who are never communicating with each other. As I am talking today on behalf of Russians Against War, I'm also volunteering in a feminist organization. I'm also have been a million times on Navalny memorial, thank you, I'm nervous a bit. And I'm weekly visiting Gamayun, and I'm seeing Artom all the time. So I thought that it's important for you to know that we are cooperating and communicating because we are all having the same goal, and we are not such a big community, unfortunately, and your support, any of us will already make a difference for the whole community. For all Russians against war in Austria or in Vienna. My name is Lydia, and I am personally working in Caritas. I'm working with Ukrainian refugees. And then I have a second job that I'm not getting paid for. It's Russians Against War Vienna. We are a volunteering organization. We are uniting Russians in Austria, both those who had to leave the country because of the war. I left the country in 2022 because of the war, and those who lived here for a long time. I think you have asked about this. So yes, the participants of our community, some of them are actually already citizens of Austria because they have been here already for a very long time. We oppose the war and the criminal regime in Russia. One of our primary goals is to show both Ukrainians and Europeans that there are Russians who do not support criminal actions of our Russian government. Since I will tell you a bit what we are doing, the part of our work. So since 2022, we have organized 19 street protests and demonstrations, adding our voices to the call of peace and condemning the Kremlin's aggression. One of our goals is support political prisoners, as shown, German goes out. It already have been mentioned here. We are writing letters to political prisoners because today more than 2,000 people are in Russia in prisons just because their political position. They have never killed anybody, they have never hurt anybody, they haven't stolen any money, they have just told something or wrote a comment, or one of my friends is for 7 years in prison because he went to an event where he read a poem about the cat and about love, but because police decided that it's an anti-war event, he got 7 years of prison. So by today we have already held 27 letter writing evenings, and on average one letter evening will attract 10 or 15 letters, which means that over the 3 years we have written hundreds of letters supporting political prisoners. And in writing letters, we rely on building friendships and trustful relationships with political prisoners, communicating and supporting each other. And you are actually all welcome to come to our political letters evening, because we are also doing it in English when there are a lot of English or German-speaking guests. We also can do it in German, actually. We focus on humanitarian aid and fundraising. In 2022, we quickly mobilized to help Ukrainian refugees that were arriving in Vienna by collecting and distributing essential supplies. We organize a lot of cultural and informational events. We have welcomed important independent Russian thinkers, journalists, activists, and culture figures who have had to leave their homes, giving them a platform to share their uncensored voices in Vienna. We also organize cultural events like documentary screening and readings. We also want to collaborate. We actively seek to partner with other communities that share our values, standing together in protest and joint initiatives. We engage with Austrian civil society partners. I will just tell you very quickly about recent events that we have held in 2025 already, so much till the April. So the 4th of April, they say, I don't know what is it, sorry, we're skipping this one. So there was 3 years of war, 24th of February, 23rd of February, so the almost anniversary, we did a big demonstration with the cube with information, where was the information how to help Ukrainian in Austria and Ukrainian in Ukraine. We made a side about investigation, about cooperation between Kremlin and FPO. We made a side, informational side, about political prisoners in Russia who was against the war and because of that went to prison. We made an information, a lot of pictures about destruction of Ukrainian cities after the Russian invasion. We also made a viewing of the movie of Navalny and raising money for human rights organizations in Russia that are helping also political prisoners. We invited Russian political scientist Ekaterina Shulman in February. And we are doing every month our regular political prisoners letter evening. There was a lot of events in these 3 years, and you can ask us in this speed date network thing, or you can see it in our Instagram. We don't have a website, we have an Instagram. It's Russians Against War Vienna, or just RAV Vienna. There are all information about events that are coming or events that we have had, so you can just follow us and always know where we will be. So yes, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lydia. I just want to enforce what you said in the beginning. I read the Navalny book, and he talks so movingly about the letters he gets and how they carry him through the days and through the weeks, and how they give him hope, and how he starts communicating with like people from somewhere in Russia who tell him don't give up, and who send his love. And I think those, you always think they don't arrive. They do. I mean, those prisoners get those letters. It's amazing, but that's something that the system they haven't stopped to be delivered.
This is the only actually legal way how you can do this, because it's legal to write letters.
And someone who sits in prisons for 7 years for reading a poem about a cat and love probably deserves a letter. So that's another of my wishes. Okay, Pavel, Memorial.
Yes.
I was
Thank
right.
you so much. Sorry? Yes, so I'm Pasha. I'm from Memorial, international association that has now been founded after the unlawful dissolution of Memorial network in Russia in 2021-2022, right in the beginning of the war. In fact, of course, there is a long, long history of the Memorial network, and I'm first of all member of the Memorial Human Rights Center. I'm also a part of Memorial Political Prisoners. I work for our NGO that helps political prisoners. In fact, there is, we count around 10,000 people currently in Russia imprisoned for their views. This figure includes around 7,000 Ukrainian citizens, both civic hostages and military personnel persecuted in civic courts, which is of course against the Geneva Conventions. And what is very important for me, in fact, since I live here in Austria, is to in fact advocate, and we have been holding events to support political prisoners in many, many various forms. We're gonna show you and meet at the, of course, at these roundtables, discussions.
Which is going to start in like 3 minutes.
In 3 minutes, yes, for sure. We promise you. But this is of an utter importance for me to understand and create together how we could include and involve the Austrian society and both civic society, academia, NGOs, artists, students, all people together through different events, through different projects, public projects, cultural projects, historical research that we're now translating and publishing, for instance, on the website that we're launching very soon. This is going to be a research about the anti-imperialist, in a way, folk songs about the genocide of Arad Kalmyk nation that happened during the Soviet times. I would say that the focus of Memorial in Austria will be quite multidisciplinary. It would be very important for us to not only center on human rights in Russia, and that Russian people can actually, or people in Russia can in fact learn something from the stories, for instance, from the Austrian civil movement, but also the cultural projects and the historical research. And therefore, we are launching multiple projects, and we're very much looking to collaborate on documentaries, on new books to publish, because currently we're collecting a major collection of anti-war poetry written by political prisoners in Russia in prison. We've been translating them to French, to English, to German, and we're looking for publishing houses to collaborate. We're currently launching projects of stories of young people from Russia, young activists, trying to understand how these complex identities, and I believe that we all have stories to tell, and this is what Memorial is actually about remembering the stories, about searching for these stories. But we do seek for the voices from Russia being somehow upheld and connected with the Austrian society, and the other way around, of course. I would say that it's very important for me, because when the war has started when I was 12 years old. I'm 22 now, and the occupation of Crimea and the Donbass invasion started in 2014. In 2014, I went out at my first single protest on the Moscow Red Square, and I was 12, and I was detained, of course, by the police after some time, but it was really cold. And what I was thinking then in the police station where I was held was that I'm alone, in fact, that I need to hide this story somehow, that I need my mom not to know about that. But the power of Memorial Association and the power of the civil society, in my opinion, is of course that we have to share this. We're not alone. And I'm very, very thankful for you to coming today to hear us.
Thank you,
to work.
Pasha. You're not alone, but you forgot to mention that Memorial got the Peace Nobel Prize, so you have like a tiny emu of the Nobel Peace Prize within you. Okay. Not me, of course. Okay. So this is the presentation. Now what we want you to do is get up from your seats. There's 7 pieces of paper saying going from 1 to 7. Find a place, sit down, and wait for the people coming to you. Take a coffee, take a tea. There's a table where you can serve yourself. Find a seat and wait for the surprises. Okay, so everybody finds a place. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Another 5 minutes before we finish this fascinating evening. For once, you're not going to be allowed to ask questions because you already had your chance to ask questions and talk. I hope lots of you wrote down addresses and email accounts and Instagram and Facebook pages, I don't know what, and got the information that you need. What I would like to do now is just for one last stance, each of us just tell me something that you're taking home with you, whether it's hope or frustration or some, I don't know, what, conflict or a question. Do you want to start, Pasha?
Yes, I'm thinking of how many people are interested in us. Thank you so much for coming. We couldn't speak to everyone, but I really hope we can, maybe afterwards, and to continue working together to start new projects, to collaborate. I think this is something that we all really cherish. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Lydia?
Sorry for coming late.
Everything's good.
Thank you so much for coming today. I actually didn't expect so many people who are interested in our work. We have already been in a symposium where were a lot of Austrians who were interested in political prisoners from the art area who were repressed from Russian regime. And now you are interested in our work. It really gives me hope that people in Austria care and can change the thing, change how it is now. What I would like to tell you is you also can change a lot because how awful it could sound, Austrians sometimes are ignorant, as all people, and yeah, like all nations. And now, as we see with this right move, political right move, that maybe tell people that there are ways to change it, there are ways to help, and yeah, there are ways to change our mindset. Thank you very much for being here to listen to us, to asking questions. Some people suggest their help and told what qualities they have, what they can do, and asked if they can help. So you are very welcome if you want, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll pick up on one of the comments that have been within the audience. Somebody told me during the rounds, I cannot imagine how you guys are doing this because you can be killed, you can be in jail, you can't visit your parents, and you don't have any, it doesn't look like you can achieve something in a way, right? Meaning, there are no options, right? There are no tools, and it is true, right? We don't have an army to fight Putin. Right? It's probably the most necessary thing at this point that we need, and this is not what we can deliver. But the short answer to this, we're a little bit crazy, right? In a good way, I guess, trying to do something possible which is available within our hands. If you are so smart, go change the world. And I do think that we have this kind of craziness in us. We still try to want to do this because we believe in good things and in good people. And the other part of that is that I think, at least for myself, the way how I define that is that, first of all, I got tired of just fear that can happen. And the second thing is that I want to tell myself that, you know, at least I've tried, right? And, you know, you can like it or not. It might not give you the best hope or like some kind of vision of the bright future, but it gives some kind of, you know, the momentum, right? You try to do the thing, and then if it works, beautiful. If it doesn't work, at least you've tried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all again. Thank you for this lovely opportunity, and thank you for so many interesting questions. And 1 hour is not remotely enough, I think. So many interesting and stimulating discussions. We would, of course, I think all of us here on stage would love to see some of you on our events that we organize, whether it's writing letters to political prisoners, whether it's supporting exhibits or listening to super smart things and at the Denkfabrik, or checking out Gamayun, or checking out and supporting the Navalny Memorial, and of course being feminist and resistant. In case you wanna, we have Vienna Voice has an Instagram account. Elena would show you a Strich code, a QR code that you can scan and be in touch with us. And thanks so much. Yeah.
What I'm taking with me is a very warm feeling of understanding that a culture of dialogue, as it was said at the beginning of the evening, is vitally important for resisting any oppressive regimes, be it in Russia or in Austria or wherever in the world. So thank you for that.
What I am taking is a experience of a lot of compassion from your side, and I am very grateful for that. And we are all very grateful for all the interest, for all the questions, and all the compassion that you've shown. And what I want you to take from that is that we are few people here on the podium, and there are some more people there in the back who could not show their faces for the photos. And behind us, there are even more people in all the countries in Europe, and even more people in Russia who are against the war, who don't follow the regime, who want to fight it the way they can, and they actually do fight it the way they can, even if it's not very visible, but they're there, and I want you to remember that they're there.
Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to come and listen to us talk about war and repression and all the bad things that are happening. I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to use my voice and speak up against the war here in a safer space compared to Russia. And I think I can speak on behalf of everyone here, is that we will continue speaking up, we will continue showing up, we will continue talking and resisting the war and resisting the criminal authoritarian regime of Putin's Russia. So we are not going anywhere, and we would like to talk more about this with you. So just a quick announcement. The Feminist Anti-War Resistance will hold its meeting in English on April 22nd at Dialog Bureau. So everyone is more than welcome to come. We will have a bit of a longer presentation of what we do and what we stand for. So we would be very happy to see you there. So thank you very much.
Ich möchte den Abend beschließen mit einem Dank an Sie alle, dass Sie gekommen sind. In diesem Fall tatsächlich auch einen Dank an Sabine Kreuzenbrunner, die das Ganze möglich gemacht hat. Nachdem wir eine Weile diskutiert haben, hat sie gesagt, wir machen das jetzt. Und ich bin froh, dass wir es gemacht haben. Danke. Danke an Artyom. Und ich meine das nicht als sozusagen Rauswurf. Ihr habt gesagt, ihr bleibt. Und wir freuen uns über jeden, der in Österreich das Widerstand gegen das Putin-Regime betreibt. Aber ich würde mich auch freuen, wenn es eines Tages eine Möglichkeit gäbe, wieder nach Hause zu gehen. Danke. Vielen Dank.